Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to appreciate you holding this hearing on these very important subjects in my state of South Dakota. I especially want to thank the distinguished panel of witnesses, and particularly Mayor Laurie Gill from our state capital of Pierre. Nice to have you here. Welcome, Laurie. Access to the national air transportation system is a serious concern for those who live or work long distances from even the smallest airports. And so connectivity is, for small and rural communities, vital to the economy. Those important connections can take many forms. Sometimes it's in the form of reliable and timely passenger air service by airlines. Sometimes it's in the form of a robust general aviation community, but all depend upon solid infrastructure. And the condition of the regional airline industry, which has changed quite a bit in the last decade, is an important factor in maintaining that connectivity. And one of the issues that we keep hearing about is the ability of those carriers to hire and retain a quality supply of pilots. And I hope we can learn a little bit more about that issue today. I know that many of you have spoken on that on some level already, but safety is always the top priority when it comes to air travel, and I want to be sure that safety measures are put in place that are having their intended effects, and that's actual safety, not the appearance of safety, which is most important. So, Mayor, I would just ask you first off, and thank you, by the way, for participating in the DOT Small Community Working Group. As the author of that provision, I look forward to hearing more about the working group's recommendations when they're released. As we think about the issue of pathways for individuals to become commercial airline pilots, do you agree that safety remains the most important consideration?
Yes, thank you. Chairman Thune, first of all, I want to say thank you for your ongoing efforts to continue to improve air service in rural America. Your efforts have been duly noted. Thank you. I think that part of what we are facing and what has put pressure on the carriers that have served Pierre have been the issue of finding enough pilots. So I absolutely agree that we need to do things that can continue to look at ways to get, first of all, people interested in being a pilot as a career, knowing the current environment coming in. They have to, first of all, want to do that. And then when they get into the training programs, to continue to look at ways to modify what counts toward the 1,500 hours that pilots currently need for certification. And I do believe that there might be ways to look at, for instance, allowing training provided by the industry to be able to use in ways that it isn't now to count for those hours. We need safety to remain first and forefront, so any recommendations I would make would be connected to FAA approval for safety and FAA determination of the number of hours to be credited. Another thing regarding pilots that comes to mind for me is having FAA consider broadening its view of what qualifies as academic experience worthy of credit hours. Again, FAA would make a safety determination as to what would qualify and how many hours. So those are just thoughts that come to mind, but I do think there needs to be an emphasis on looking at how we can continue to have pilots funneling into that pipeline, because we are going to see more and more retirements coming that are going to help make this problem even deeper.
That safety be the number one consideration.
Absolutely, safety, and everything that I would recommend would be tied in some way to FAA oversight to determine if any changes that are being made keep safety at the very first forefront.
As a mayor of Pierre, you're no doubt helping lead the economic development efforts of the city. Can you give any real-world examples of how access to and reliability of air services impacted the community's economic development efforts, especially with respect to attracting businesses and employees to the community?
Certainly. You know, we are the state capital, and so obviously we're a government town. In our top 10 employers, we have state government, federal government, and city government. There's a lot of those folks that need to get in and out to do business, whether it be at a regional office in Denver, in Washington, D.C., so we have the need to do that. We also are the gateway many times into the state of South Dakota, and people are coming from all over the world to come in to do their business us. We have people that live in our community that work all over the nation, and it is a wonderful thing about our country that people can live where they want to and fly in and out and do their work that they need to do, whether they be a consultant or work for a national company. And many people live in our central South Dakota and depend on that air service to get to where they need to do. And then we've also talked to many businesses that we are working to entice to come into our community. And one of the things they're checking out as they are looking at a community is they're checking out what the access to service is, where they can get to, how many flights, and is it accessible. So that very much is on the forefront of any decisions for a company that's making a business decision looking at our community.
Dr. Smith, we're glad to have your expertise representing Embry-Riddle, which is an aviation, obviously a key institution in our country when it comes to these issues. And I know on aviation safety, you've been a leader in terms of the research there. Could you perhaps give us some idea about what factors to weigh most or least when it comes to producing the best and the safest pilots possible? What are some of the things that we need to be focused on?
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your emphasis on safety, because everything that we do in university education, aviation education, and what we did in the pilot source study focused on the concept of safety first. What we found in the study that hours themselves was not an indicator of performance, just the term hours. And we felt that we really needed to go back and look at where did those hours come from, what was the kind of experience that those pilots had in order to make them eligible to become first officers. And in the industry, we're looking at two possible descriptors of training or background that would help. One of them is the concept of structured flying under some kind of operating manual, under some kind of supervision. The other one is called disciplined flying. It's one of the reasons why the FAA allowed the military pilots to be eligible at 750 hours, because they know that all of the flying those pilots do is discipline. So what I would like you to look at is the concept that hours themselves, without any kind of descriptor where those hours come from, is insufficient evidence that a pilot is either going to perform well or is going to be safe.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, thank you. I appreciate, again, you having this hearing, and a great panel. And I know there'll be a lot of questions for the record, and I know that you've had to expedite this because of votes, but we appreciate your flexibility and understanding that, and look forward, I know, I've got some questions I'd like to submit for the record, too, as well. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you, Chairman. I think we put a lot of information on the record.